Hello there, I'm Tom. I'm an artist, painter. This is my art studio. Do you want to have a look around? Let's go. I've had quite a few art studios, and over time I've realized the best studios are simple studios. You know what makes a studio good? Easy cleaning systems. Okay, so these are my paintbrushes, and this is my system. Because I try to paint every morning, I don't want to spend lots of time trying to clean my oil brushes. Basically, every one of these oil paintings are covered in this stuff. I found this in an art supply store about 5 or 10 years ago, and I'm still working through the jar. It's called Dissolve. I don't know if they produce it anymore, but it's like this oil sort of that never dries. I think it's got coconut oil and things like that. If I find a link for the product, I'll put it up there because it's a really great product. The benefit of this stuff is once you mix it into the brush, it will never dry, and it also conditions the brush. But the downside is what's in here never dries. So you need to really kind of clean it out well with a rag. And that's where I use this odorless solvent. Once the brush is clean, it's ready to go and you can start painting for the day. I found when I never used to do this, I would end up just going through heaps of really good brushes. And you know what? Brushes are really expensive. If you've been painting for a while, you would probably know that some art processes make all the difference. This system here changed everything. Let me tell you the story. So I had this art studio in Collingwood in Victoria, really trendy place. And there was this lady who put up this post on a news board. And I remember I saw it up there for a couple of months because it just seemed unbelievable. This lady was getting rid of all her art supplies, like every one of them. And she was this extraordinary painter, oil painter. I love oil paints. And you have to understand, like, when you're getting rid of your best paints, it's kind of like parting with your children. I love this chart. Anyway, eventually I followed up this number and I gave her a call, and it turned out to be true. She was giving away every one of these paints that are in these drawers. So every one of the paints that this lady gave me is on here. Now, this turned out to actually be a bit of a sad but beautiful story because what was actually happening, and she never told me, is she was dying of cancer. It was just so beautiful to get to know her in her final days. And still when I paint, I feel as though I'm somehow kind of connected to her legacy, that I get to paint from these materials that she had these plans for, and somehow I get to kind of finish off what she started. So you develop a relationship with your paints over time. So if you're new to this painting thing, my tip to you is start small, but as you buy more paints, document your collection, because every now and then you go back to the old paints and you realize that they're actually really beautiful. Like some of these Montmartre paints, they're actually really good. Don't get too snobby. Just document when you really like that paint, because you might go back to it. It's like they all have different personalities, and some paints like others and they don't like others. They just don't get along. So when I received about 50 or so, actually I've never counted this, it's probably 80 paints that I'd never worked with, I needed to document them all. And this has been so helpful because often when I'm painting, I'm imagining a color, and the color always corresponds to something I see here. And this corresponds to these drawers. Check this out. Honestly, these are such delicious colors. Some of them I just feel so blessed to have because they cost like $150 for this tiny tube. Now, some of these are pretty crusty tubes, but it doesn't really matter to me. Even if they've dried out, I can just sort of dig around at some of that pigment, and if I really like that pigment, then I know I can get some more. I've had quite a few studios, and what I've realized is this: a minimal studio is a good studio. You don't need heaps of clutter in your studio. In fact, if you have heaps of clutter, you're probably just going to get it covered in paint. It's going to annoy you over time, so keep it minimal. You don't need much stuff. You might be wondering, where am I? Truth is, I'm under my house. This is an 1890s miner's cottage. Now, if you're from the UK or America, that might not seem like a big deal, but this is like probably one of the early cottages in Brisbane. I took this awesome photo in the museum just to capture a sense of what the land looked like at the time. It's kind of a crazy thought because this is now surrounded by buildings. At the time, it must have been just like pastures of rolling hills. I kind of like that. One of the things I love about Brisbane is there's just constant bird life. So I can sit out there and we get these beautiful birds in the trees, and it's just a really nice way to sort of contemplate. But it also really inspires me, which is probably why I've been doing these kind of bird paintings. I don't know, I really like Brisbane. I moved up here from Melbourne, and Melbourne's trendy and stuff, but Brisbane's just beautiful and light-filled, so it just makes you want to paint bright, happy paintings. This table here is where I work on my small artworks. Do you see this thing? This is like a little stand that I've built, and I can put my camera into here, I can plug it in, and it films my work, which is great. This may surprise you, but all the filming I do, I just use my phone. It's a bit of a makeshift job, but it works. It's an iPhone 14? No, I'm not actually that sure. I think it's 14 Pro. It's one of those ones with the nice big cameras. I like this little makeshift microphone stand I've done because it means I can try get some of the sounds of the painting when I paint. Although I have to admit that most of the sounds I've been capturing early in the morning are just heavy breathing or me sneezing. So I tend to just kind of cover it up with some sort of song or something. All right, let me show you how this thing works. Got this desk from Amazon, and the benefit of this one is you can kind of make it lean up and down and you don't end up with a sore neck. Everyone's a winner that way. You want to be comfortable when you're making art. Being able to paint with it this high makes such a difference. And this little proppy thing, here it is. It's makeshift, but it works. And that's all you need, something that works. Sometimes I just convert this to a desk, and it's an awesome desk as well. Some of you might ask, why all these vines? My question to you, why not? Your studio is just as much about utility as it is about just a place of creating beautiful things. Let me tell you about these caulking guns, because they're a bit of a game changer for me too. You see, I realized I was wasting about 20% of my paint because it would just dry in the tube. And these guns just mean that you can squirt the paint out, but you can also buy paint in bulk. So I've realized that I have a palette of 7 colors, and they are my go-to colors. When I restrict my colors to those 7 colors, then it reduces a lot of complexity to the paintings. But every now and then I might just sneak 1 or 2 pigments from my pigment chart. And you know when it's time to sneak one of these pigments in, because your mind is just sort of imagining, what if I put in this different color I've never considered using? How cool are those colors? So that's my studio. Do you want to see more? Leave a comment in the comments section and let me know what kind of video you want to see. See you next time.